Yes, we're really very delighted because also, as Steffi said, it's got to do with Munich. Actually, Flaka did the Kosovo Pavilion at the Venice Biennale and lives between Munich, Vienna, and Kosovo and Pristina. So as actually Camille Brienne said a long time ago, n'être que entre, to be only in between, to live between geographies. What is so interesting about her living in Munich is that what's happening is really that Munich is such an extraordinary situation with extraordinary museums and institutions, certainly one of the most dynamic places at the moment to see exhibition. And that obviously is a magnet for artists. So it's interesting, when I started in the early 90s, sort of a similar thing was the case. There was a previous moment about 20 years ago where all of a sudden many artists moved to Munich. I remember Carsten Höller, who was then a baby artist. He had just started. He did a magazine with Paul McCarthy, so I got a letter from him. He had moved from Kiel and Hamburg to Munich. Of course, the Swiss artist Urs Lüthi, protagonist who so instrumental in terms of Swiss art in the 70s and 80s, had moved to Munich, and now we are 20 years later, and there is such a new energy and dynamics in Munich. So we felt with Steffi that it's important to celebrate that. Flaka has done many, many works which are related to technology, and it's also the moment to celebrate this art scene from Kosovo. When I went to Kosovo last year, it reminded me really a lot of Glasgow in the early 90s, because it's basically an extraordinarily tightly knit small art scene with a museum where actually Erzen Sokoli has done one of the most remarkable institutions of the last couple of years, really negotiating the local and the global in a very exemplary way. The proximity also to another very dynamic art scene in Albania, in Tirana, created something which is truly dynamic. For those of you who haven't been there and haven't looked at the art scene in Pristina, this is very, very urgent. So please give a very warm welcome to Flaka Haliti.
Thank you.
So like before with Michael Flaka, I thought it would be nice that we begin with the beginning. And the first work of yours about which I heard rumors, it actually created a very big stir all over the place and also on the internet, was My Balls from 2007. Can you tell us about that work?
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for having me here. My Balls was done in 2007 as an illegal action. In that time, I didn't know what means illegal action. I just felt the urge that I have to do that. So it was like, as you said, the art scene is really new in Kosovo. And in 2007, they start thinking, oh, we have few artists which internationally they are quite known, and we can exchange or export. But they were all male artist names. So suddenly the discussion came, and it was between important peers, people who started the contemporary art scene in Kosovo. And they said, yeah, because women artists in Kosovo don't have balls to become an artist. And this was like balls in the sense of testicles. And this was the first provocation that came in. And then I felt the urge to react and respond to that. So in the exhibition of National Gallery in Muslim Lici Art Prize, which is the biggest prize in Kosovo, I made the illegal intervention when I actually buy a lot of testicles, balls from an animal like a cow, not cow, a bully. And then I, sorry, it's like, and then I just enter illegally in the space, and I give that as a present. And that was actually, after a while, from Station Center for Contemporary Art, Albert Heta was like pointing out that this is the first illegal intervention happening in the art history of Kosovo, and made by the woman artist, which was interesting. And then it was becoming more and more like a topic there. And that's actually quite, yeah, a rumor.
And now today, in a similar way as with Mark Craig Martin, we wanted to focus on your sort of connection to technology. And I was wondering, when did you have for the first time a computer? When did you go online?
Don't remember exactly. I mean, probably just after the war in Kosovo, yeah. And this email thing, it started slow. You had to go to internet coffee to have your internet access. So I had computer, but without internet. So basically how I used the computer was drawing on that. I was amazed by the colors, what you can get, and how the drawings, yeah. So one cousin of mine lately mentioned that in Facebook, and I was like, oh yeah, it's true. You know? I was drawing first in computer like that.
And then one of the first works you actually did, which connects to the digital, is this, which we wanted to talk about, is the work clouds. And we have an image here in the background. It's particularly interesting because we did here at DLD a project actually about clouds. We had cloud experts. We had basically from art history, Hubert Damisch, who wrote the famous history of cloud. We also had Hans Magnus Enzensberger, the poet and writer, the legendary poet and writer from Munich, who wrote a poetry book. So we had the poetry of clouds. He wrote a poetry book about clouds. We had, of course, emerging artists who worked with cloud technology, and also Werner Vogels from Amazon, who talked about clouds and Amazon. So it was a very pluridisciplinary panel here. And you did this piece called "Do You See a Face?" I see a face. Do you see a face? It doesn't end with a question mark. Can you tell us about it?
I see a face, do you see a face? It's supposed to be like the speaker is so wrong. So it's like imposing a point of view. It's imposing the perspective of the center. So the sharing, what we always speak about sharing on internet or in a online platform, it's not always about this generosity, like not about how I understand very often. It's about sharing my center, my point of view, my perspective, which is sometimes impossible, because we all have our own perspective of looking at things. So clouds is a very good example, because we always see things, and the cloud change every second, change the shape. And at the same time, you're sitting next to the other person, and when you try to explain what face or what animal or whatever shape you're looking at, it's almost impossible that the other person is seeing the same thing. So sharing on internet, for me, it's always about sharing my point of view, and that's how point and the center can become quite centralized, and some are more dominant. Some people have more followers and more, because of the center can dominate the perspective of looking at things.
Now, you also did a work which relates to email, and as always, your titles are wonderful. The title is I miss you till I don't miss you anymore. and that's actually, it's a piece about email love letters. Can you tell us about it?
I had a lot of distance relationship, actually, with traveling a lot. And that for me was like a lot of emails, a lot of exchange, meeting people. And then I realized how emails, also this relation, what you can develop in a distance, has 3 stages, actually. And then I asked other people to give me their love letters, like friends who would trust me and that I could keep anonymous their names and relationship. So then I collected them, and I realized how universal they are. Like, if you read your love letters after a few years, you will realize that they're like completely, could be anyone, anytime writing to anybody, So on that case, I just thought, okay, that's a Google Translate now. So I put the love letters in a Google Translate, and I play the audio of it. And it's extremely funny that it created exactly this funny relation towards something that is non-human, almost like. And so I miss you till I don't miss you anymore. It has 3-screen installation, one after the other, and has different color, like the colors also embody this materiality of internet. And at the same time, those 3 colors, 3 stages explain like beginning of love relationship, a middle one, and the third ending. So actually, I have pictures, I forgot. This is wrong for me. It's like,
so that's the way it was presented.
Yeah, exactly. Like 3 monitors, they're standing in the kind of dark room. The first stage is explaining how love letters, beginning of I miss you, it's always like I want to share my routine. By sharing my routine and my life, what I'm doing every day, I make you come closer to me, although you are in distance. So the second screen creates this feeling of, okay, there is enough of it, I need now physicality exchange, and this physicality involves a lot of like kind of physical needs. I miss your body. I miss you to sleep with me now, or I miss that and that. So, and then the third stage, it's funny enough, it's again about sharing, but in a way that sharing by trying to tell you that my routine doesn't belong to you anymore. I'm doing this and I'm busy. Sorry, I couldn't write you again, or something like this. So it's like kind of the way of closing the relationship and creating a distance, which is very interesting. How you can get someone closer to you by sharing the routine, depend how you do it, and again, make a distance by trying to share the routine in another tone, you know.
And after this triptych, another work which has to do with the world of technology, with the world of the digital, and of course subjectivity is Joe is everything. And I was sort of thinking about Alighiero Boetti, who always told me, you know, about this idea of being everything. It's of course also to do with identity being multiple, identity. I mean, Etel Adnan, the poet from Lebanon, she says identity in the digital age is shifty. You know, identity is a choice, and Joe really is not only everything, he's also everywhere. Joe migrates through all kinds of media. Joe is on Instagram, I think. Joe is on Facebook.
Yes.
Joe has physical manifestations, as I think when we did the panel here, Ways Beyond the Internet, some of the artists talked about physical rain. So Joe is physical rain. Joe is everything. Can you tell us about who is Joe?
Joe is like recent series I started in 2015, when there were coming more and more increasing like a request for shows, like that I was invited different exhibition talks and stuff, and I realized how fast that goes, especially with the like digital distribution of the artwork and shows and exhibitions. You meet a lot of very often everybody wants a new production from you, because the old production, even if it's like last year production, was too much online. Like people saying they have seen it just because it was online. You know, it was too present. In the past, you could see it in a museum or in a reproduction of catalogs or magazines, but now it's like everybody can share it. And then I think that increased the need and demand for new production, which is very often very, very hard. So Joe became like a response to that system, like a fast-growing system, that Joe is a joker, Joe is a robot, Joe can be everything. Joe is a material, it's immaterial, it's fluid, it's everything. But always, Lifetime series, Joe appears in a kind of same title. Is it you, Joe? So Lifetime, I'm going to check if that's Joe, you know, in every shape possible.
Yeah, there was a robot here earlier, and actually the rumor was that Joe appeared here as a robot. Now the thing is also, you know, your work, of course, reached a very international kind of reception through the Kosovo Pavilion at the last Venice Biennale, which Nicola Schaffhausen curated. And this work, of course, again connects to technology, but also to politics. It's a work which very much has to do with the color blue. We discussed earlier, it's less connected to, you said, to Derek Jarman's film Blue, but it's more connected to the blue, actually, of the United Nations, to all kinds of forms, actually, of blue between nations and regions, and of course, also conflict. Can you tell us a little bit about this exhibition in Venice?
Speculating on the blue was supposed to speculate in every kind of blue related to Kosovo, but blue in a sense of limits or horizon. So Kosovo is the most isolated country in Eastern Europe and in Yugoslavia. It's the only country that has no Schengen even. You know, all other countries in the neighbor has a Schengen. Thank you. It's great you find it. That's a book what we published with Nicola Schaffhausen.
The book is Blue. It's an extraordinary publication about the Venice show, a blue book. Yeah, exactly. Lost and found.
Lost and found.
Yeah,
Now it has a history.
Yeah, you were talking about blue and the connection to Schengen, because it's, when I landed in Pristina, it was the beginning of my research there, and we did, we met artists and I did a lecture, but the first thing I actually saw was a billboard at the airport, which somehow was hinting at this difficulty to travel, for not only for artists, for everyone, that it's almost impossible to get visas.
Yeah. There was one sentence which says, I would like to visit Venice Biennale.
Yeah.
So, of course, visa makes everything more expensive. And because it costs time, not only what you have to pay about it, it costs time to do it, So time costs today. And the thing about, I think, when I was selected for Venice Biennale, I thought, of course, I have to react to current, like a chronopolitics of Kosovo. What is happening now, and how can I translate that in a kind of more global level and maybe even poetic level? So. Blue at this image was my starting point, actually. This is United Nations headquarters on the way from airport to reaching the city in Kosovo. And funny enough, they have this blue horizon, what they made out of the concrete walls, which it feels like, oh, do they want to create like, oh, there is no wall you can see through? Or is it like making them less visible? Or what's the reason? So there I start from, and that's how it ended up. I created like a space and a room with a lot of blue sand and 5 sculptures, which is like stripping down to this military barriers into the skeleton of it that you could look through, and they're lost. So then I had the horizon, what was twice happening per day, and I called it a blue hour. So the blue hour was supposed to kind of create the possible future in a way that it is there, and it refers to concrete utopia, not an abstract one, because the abstract one it's supposed to be something you cannot reach, but the concrete utopian which enter lately, it's more like about speaking utopian, which is possible to happen, and it's possible that you can be part of it. So it depends on us, So that's why twice a day, horizon happened there, and it's funny enough, it changed the color of the blue sand into the green when the yellow light entered, and then it became black. And then it became completely like disappeared exactly the limits of the walls, the limits of the grounding, and these sculptures were almost like in the air, like floating around.
Now,
I think you're first time listening to me with this kind of concentration, right?
Now, time is up, but I wanted to ask you a very last question, which is actually about Kosovo and about Pristina, because it is a very extraordinary thing. When I gave this lecture there were so many artists, of course, from Pristina, and also artists from Tirana, because the two art scenes are very connected. It's not very far. And Ersan Sokoli, one of the leading artists of Pristina, who actually Harald Steemann told me about, was one of the last artists, Harald Steemann, the late Harald Steemann, who actually, when he curated his last Venice Biennale, he worked with Ersan, and he was very enthusiastic about actually Pristina and the art scene there. And obviously Ersan ran the museum, so an artist ran the museum, the biggest museum, the National Museum, and at the same time, that's in Pristina, and then on the other side, actually, in Albania, you have an artist run the entire country, where actually Edi Rama, a painter, is now prime minister. So that would be as if in Munich, both the old and new Pinakothek would be run by an artist, and the country, instead of Angela Merkel, would have an artist running the country. So it is a very unusual constellation. Can you tell us a little bit about this and about what makes this art scene so dynamic and so special?
I think it's very interesting that Kosovo became quite international in a sense that many big NGOs were there, like including European Union, United Nations, NATO, and World Bank and many, many then small NGOs. So actually, you soon arrive there, you hear a lot of English speaking around you, and you don't expect that. And so that energy, somehow the dynamic, everybody goes there, has really fun. The architecture is a lot of DIY architecture, because after the 90s, there was really like the urban planning was failing, but it's just amazing how much things happening, how fast develop, and sometimes also in the wrong way, and maybe more often in the wrong way. But what I find it very unfair, and I think EU, it's really mean to Kosovo in this context, that has no liberation of Schengen visa, that this creates even more like a passion, and also people are really like interested on following online stuff. You have wireless everywhere. It's like in Vienna or maybe even more. So I don't know what makes so special, but it's like the history maybe, or I don't know. It's hard for me to talk. It's like if I talk for myself, it's like really personal.
But anyway, for those of you who haven't been there, it's very, very urgent to visit Pristina. And Flaka, thank you so much. Thank you all very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.